Hello everyone, my name is Lyzette Schott and I will be presenting on Pompeii. Years of discovery, changes in power and destruction long after the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. It's a well-known story that is actually not known well. Everyone knows the story of Pompeii, or the basic story, a volcanic eruption of Mount Vesuvius that buried an entire city of Pompeii in the year 79. The bodies that are cast in plaster in poses in their final moments. Everybody has seen these images. There's so much more to Pompeii, though, that not many people are aware of. Pompeii's shocking history unfolds after it's discovered. Researchers have been studying Pompeii and the eruption that destroyed it for hundreds of years, but we're going to look at Pompeii today from a different angle. Our focus will be on the researchers themselves, the discoveries made with the technology of their time, and the drama, destruction, and chaos that comes to Pompeii through recent history since its discovery. It all starts with the initial discovery. This is Domenico Fontana. He originally discovers the lost city of Pompeii in the late 16th century, completely by accident while digging a canal. He had no further excavation done at this time and moved on to other projects. This guy here is Roque Joaquin de Alcubierre. Alcubierre actually steps up to become the actual discoverer of Pompeii in 1738. He arrives with plans to excavate Pompeii and becomes the site supervisor beginning in 1745. The excavation site of Pompeii under de Alcubierre's supervision was extremely dangerous working conditions for the crew. De Alcubierre was the site director until 1780, but he had many site supervisors under his direction during his tenure there. De Alcubierre is actually here for treasure. De Alcubierre's excavations were more of a treasure hunt and less of a historical and scientific research platform. He was in this for the money and not really the science. Due to the nature of his discoveries and the artifacts he collected, de Alcubierre kept his dig sites extremely secretive from the public. In 1750, we enter the Swiss. Carl Weber arrived in 1750 as the on-site supervisor under de Alcubierre. Weber brought a high level of workplace caution to the site to keep excavators safe. Weber used the technology of hand-drawn 3D mapping, which was modern for his time, and he maintained the site supervisor position until 1760. This figure here shows a hand-drawn 3D map that would have been done in 1750. This gentleman here is a German scholar, Johann Joachim Winckelmann. He became the on-site supervisor under Alcubierre, replacing Weber in 1760. He came with more of a concern for history of the art that was found in the ruins of Pompeii and had intent on categorizing Greek and Roman sculpture and archaeology. Winckelmann was actually banned from the site after only a couple of years because he criticized de Alcubierre and his methods too much. Then we move on to Francisco La Vega, who was the new supervisor. There are no documented images of him, but Francisco La Vega arrived in Pompeii in 1764 after the abrupt exit of his predecessor Winckelmann. La Vega had a plan for the conservation, preservation, and historical research of the Pompeii ruins for the first time since its discovery. Under his leadership, the Odeon, the large theater, the Temple of Isis, and the Triangular Forum were discovered, as well as the gladiators' barracks and the Palestra. In a major change of hands, La Vega replaced de Alcubierre as the Pompeii site director of archaeological works in 1780. Again, there are no pictures of him, but this is the large theater that he discovered just after his arrival. In In 1767, we enter this guy here, which is Sir William Hamilton. He arrived from Britain and Pompeii as a result of the public finally acknowledging Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius. Hamilton was actually an amateur volcanologist. He heavily focused on the volcano itself, and he was even present to witness and document eruptions from Mount Vesuvius in 1767, 1779, and 1794. He hiked the volcano 65 times to document changes to the crater and analyze the smoke and ash clouds that formed during the eruption. Yes, there have been more eruptions since the Pompeii disaster. Pompeii is now open for tourists as of 1863. Giuseppe Ferrelli, this gentleman here, became the Pompeii site director with a goal of uncovering the entire city from the pumice stone. He opened the site to tourism, charging admissions to fund the dig. Fiorelli was the first to include the public in the discoveries, even allowing them to watch the excavations in person. Ultimately, only about a third of the city was found, but Fiorelli made incredible discoveries and technology advancements during his time there. In that lower picture, you can see the dig site towards the bottom with people around. And you can actually see women in long dresses and people lining up along the top to just look down into the dig site as he allowed tourism. Okay, so now we're going to talk about something that everyone has seen a lot of. Plaster, arguably the greatest technological advancement in Pompeii history. Fiorelli used sophisticated technology in the form of plaster casting techniques that forever preserved the remains inside the volcanic layers. These castings are widely known as the most detailed records of the remains of people, and as you can see in these pictures, animals, in their final moments of life, most in poses that show their attempt to escape the volcano's fury. You see the horse up to the left and a pet dog with a collar on in the middle, and then a man on the right. Okay, so then we're going to move forward a little bit. Pompeii homes and how it was affected by World War I. This is Vittoria Spinazzola, an Italian archaeologist that came to Pompeii in 1911. Despite interrupting world events, including World War I, he opened a massive excavation that uncovered residences and upper floors of large buildings. Spinazzola was instrumental in the work and the discovery of large city blocks and homes. After World War I, however, Spinazzola was forced to step down by the fascist Italian government in 1923. You can see in the lower picture on the right that they had to dig away layers and layers of sediment to get down to street level and start uncovering these homes. This is probably the most famous of all the architectural people that came to Pompeii. This is Amedeo. I'm pronouncing it Maori, but I don't think that's correct. The Pompeii of today. Maori became Pompeii director in 1923, and he remained there until 1962. He is credited with having discovered the Pompeii that we see today, including the House of Meander, which is this figure 26 here, and the Villa of Mysteries. Mary uncovered 2/3 of the city and focused heavily on extensive restoration and conservation work. He is also known with the group The Fugitives, which I will explain. Amedeo Mori found Giuseppe Ferrelli's plaster-casted group of people and nicknamed them the Fugitives. That is this group you see here in figure 29. He labeled the people in the group with unresearched titles and backstories to make them more relatable to the public. All the work at the Pompeii site abruptly halted in 1943, though, towards the end of World War II. We will get into that in just a moment. These plaster castings that you see here in figure 29 are arranged here in a line, but they are actually discovered pretty close to each other, but in different sections, and he had them all moved to this section and to publicize them to the public and for tourists to see to generate more income. 43 bombing. this is a fact that I had no idea about once I started researching, but in World War II, World War II actually brought total destruction to Pompeii when the Allies dropped 150 bombs on the site, believing that the Germans were hiding in the ruins. Several artifacts and discoveries were completely destroyed. You can see there in the picture on the left, that is from the bombings, and it's all of the buildings they had uncovered had been destroyed, lots of them. And then in the right picture, that is all of the places where documented bombs had dropped. So there were 150 bombs dropped during World War II on Pompeii's site. Beginning in 2012 and funded by the European Union, the archaeological equivalent of an ICU was created as a response to UNESCO's call for urgent action to keep Pompeii off the World Heritage in Danger list. Since the 1960s, Pompeii had been ravaged by neglect, earthquake, poor drainage, mass tourism, theft, and vandalism. Only 10 of the city's buildings are open to the public now compared to 64 that were available in 1956. This project is ongoing currently. In the first image here, you'll see a news article where a tourist from Canada actually stole some artifacts and then returned them because she claimed they gave her years of bad luck. And then on the right in figure 33, you'll see the normal day at Pompeii with lots of foot traffic and lots of tourists. And that weighs very heavily on the site itself. In 2019, a documentary was released through National Geographic entitled Pompeii: Secrets of the Dead. It follows scientists using modern X-ray technology on the plaster castings of Maori's The Fugitives. Remember that those castings, yes, were arranged by Maori, but they were originally done by Fiorelli. The documentary is available for viewing on Disney+. It's actually a really great watch if you have any interest in Pompeii. The technology they use in the documentary revealed some really incredible discoveries. Discoveries of metal wiring used to hold the plaster together inside the castings gave insight to how they were originally formed by Fiorelli in the 1800s. Preserved bodies wearing jewelry and clothing that showed up on the images taken, as well as teeth and bones, allowed forensic scientists and dentists to provide accurate ages and causes of death for the victims, completely undoing the stories that had been given to them by Maori in 1961. So you can see in figure 35, there's a lot of bone matter inside the plaster. It actually preserved it really well, and dentists were able to tell based off of what molars were present and at what descent stage they were, how old this person was, and some of their life story. Figure 36 is them, that's the box, the x-ray box they used to scan the fugitives. Some of the fugitives and plaster castings were moved to a lab to do this, but a lot of them were actually done right on site as to not disrupt them. Figure 37 is the baby that is in the documentary, and they were able to age this baby. And normally, they mentioned in the documentary how baby bones look very different to archaeologists, so often they get passed over as small animals. So there's not a lot of historical data on babies throughout history, and this baby is extremely well preserved, even his clothes and everything, so they were able to date him. And then in figure 38, you can see where the plaster has kind of chipped away and actually revealed teeth and the skull line, and it shows in great detail this person in their final moments. The last controversy I would like to talk about with Pompeii is actually still ongoing. The current controversy in question by scientists is a disagreement over the date of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. The year is 79. The month people are still arguing about. The original date was determined by the Codex Laurentinus Medius manuscript, which dates the eruption as the 9th day before the calends, which means 1st of September. In other words, August 24th. More recently, though, excavators at Pompeii discovered a charcoal graffitio dated the 16th day before November, which would have been October 17th. You can see that in this picture here. It's just like charcoal script onto a wall. Could this inscription have been placed just prior to the eruption, or was it on the wall for 10 months prior to the eruption and then preserved? That is the argument going between scientists right now. Because of it being charcoal, most scientists believe that it was placed on there right before, and that charcoal would not have lasted on the wall for 10 months with the weather that this section of the world gets. So they don't think it would have stayed on there for 10 months prior, so they think this is the correct date. One thing the scientists know is that atmospheric studies suggest the fallout pattern of volcanic ash reflects high altitude southeasterly winds, which today are present in that region in autumn, so fall time winds. These winds could have changed though since the eruption was almost 2,000 years ago, so is that really a clue as to the correct dating of the volcanic explosion? I have listed citations if any go through and look up some more, and these are the source citations.